Right, as you guys can figure out, we are at the point in our greenhouse process that we're getting ready to put the plastic on. It's going to show you one way of doing it. I'm going to show you the way that I do it. It may or may not be the correct way of doing it. This is just what I do. This is how I do this. First thing you want to do is lay out your plastic. Now, there are going to be one way this plastic is going to lay out here. If you look at your plastic up close, which I'll bring you in here in just a second, you will see a almost like a mark on your plastic that says inside, and it only faces one direction. The reasoning behind that is you can see how you can read this inside. You can read this when you're looking at this. And I know this is not going to make sense right now until you get to this point. We want to be able to read. We're inside the high tunnel right now. We want to be able to read the inside on that center purlin. And what that's going to do is, as long as we're standing inside the high tunnel and we can look up and see that it says inside, that means that the UV protectant is on the outside and the moisture protectant is on the inside. This comes with a condensation layer protectant on the inside of this plastic here. So if you are doing cut flowers or anything like that, it keeps the condensation from dripping onto your flower petals and causing stains or any type of vegetables that you may have to have. The aesthetics is what the selling point is. And you can see we're here on the inside of one of our other tunnels. See, can you see that without the sun shining up in your face? You can see how I can read the word the correct way. I can read it correctly by standing inside the tunnel looking up, and I can read it the right direction. That's what I mean. You want to make sure you do that because, like I said, the condensation layer is on the inside there, and then the UV protectant layer is on the outside of the plastic. You can, by all means, flip it the other direction if you want to do that. But then your UV protectant's on the inside and your condensation protectant's on the outside. And that's not going to do you any good because it's going to build up moisture inside that tunnel. You always want to make sure, it's just a simple tip. All the plastic that I have ever dealt with from multiple companies has always had some type of right way reading through the inside to let you know which way to go. So all I'm doing here is, I do know my tunnel is 52 foot long, and I do have a big enough piece of plastic to cover all of this. Like I said, I've got enough plastic for 130 feet. That includes a 100-foot high tunnel and then 30 feet of sidewall. So what they do is they'll give you that when you type in your dimensions, especially at Bootstrap Farmer, makes it really easy. When you type in your dimensions, always get more than you need because you've got to add on for the end walls. You've got 2 end walls here. So if you just ask for a 52-foot piece of plastic, you're only going to get a 52-foot piece of plastic. So when you do 100-foot, they do have calculations in there. And if you have any questions, make sure you call the 1-800 number. They will help you and walk through that process with you. So all we're going to do is we're just going to stand here and roll this plastic all the way down the line here. This is the easiest thing to do. Like I said, with me being by myself here, it would be ideal to have 2 or 3 people, but with me being by myself, I can't pick this piece of plastic up and just man house it. It used to come in a box where you could just physically pick it up. Now it comes on this roll, which I kind of like because you can run a piece of top rail through it and then use it to be able to pull. But the thing is I don't have anything to kind of put this into, like a cradle or anything as of yet. And so you kind of almost just have to roll this on the ground. There is plenty of plastic here to do what you need to do. Make sure when you do this, you can see the end of the high tunnel. And I'm probably a good, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 foot. So I want to make sure I at least get an extra 4 or 5 feet here. There you go. We'll just, it does not hurt to have a little extra. And the good thing about this is that you can cut this with the standard pair of scissors. So all I'm using is just some some standard kitchen shears. And I'm just going to cut through this. Now you want to, if this is your first time ever doing this, you want to make sure that you measure 100 times and cut once. If you cut this too short, then guess what? It's too short. Once you get this plastic cut for the length of your high tunnel, you always want to make sure you go at least 4 or 5 foot over and at least a couple foot on the other side. That gives you wiggle room that you can pull on this thing. You got to think, As the sun comes in later on this afternoon, this stuff is going to stretch a little bit, and it's going to heat up and it's going to start to stretch out. So you want to make sure you have plenty of slack to pull this nice and taut. Once you get that done, we need to cut the sidewalls. So the easiest thing to do here is to go ahead and cut your length first. That gets your heaviest amount of mass out of here and on the ground, and then we're going to cut the sidewalls. You got to remember, this is 20 foot wide. So as this plastic comes to me, I already ordered this plastic to fit a 20 by 100 foot high tunnel, which they already do the calculations for you. They make that 40 foot wide and they make it 130 foot long. The reason why they make it 130 foot long is because from the ground, from your door all the way to the top should be about 10 to 10 and a half to 11 foot long, depending on how high you put the posts in. So they give you that extra 30 feet to cut it into a 15 foot chunk. So you've got 15 foot for this side, 15 foot for that side. So your top of your high tunnel is only going to be about 10 or 10 and a half feet. So you see you've got 2 or 3 to 4 foot of slack there that you could actually pull and get this tight. Saying that we cut this tunnel from 100 foot to a 52 footer now, I've got way more plastic than what I need. So what I like to do is I like to cut the first piece of plastic first. What that does is that takes the majority of the weight off my roll, and that leaves me with the smaller roll here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to measure out 15 feet, and then we're going to cut a piece, and then we're going to measure out 15 feet, and we're going to cut another piece. One piece is going to be this end wall, the other piece is going to be the other one. So you just want to kind of roughly get it cut. I mean, there's nothing to really get. Okay, see, we are at 15 foot right here. All right, we've got one of our end walls drug down here. Once again, like I said, you want to make sure when you look at this plastic that you can read the inside on the inside. So what's that telling you? You want to hold it up and you want to be able to read that the right way. You want it to be reversed on the outside. So which this is. And the good thing about this, where this writing is, the only writing on all this plastic is directly right down the center of the plastic. So that is a good hood ornament to position yourself. I like to put that writing as close to the center purlin going down the center as possible. That guarantees me I have the equal amount of plastic on both sides. If you offset it, it's not that big of a deal. It's just every time you come into the tunnel, you're going to see the center purlin in the center, and then offset, you're going to see your row, which doesn't hurt anything. They give you more than enough plastic to do what you got to do, but why not go ahead and take that extra 30 seconds and just align that plastic the best that you can, just to have that aesthetic factor going on. I mean, you've already spent so much time and effort building this thing. Why are you going to skimp out on putting the plastic on? I just, that's just something that I don't see. But so now let me try to get my plastic maneuvered into place for the most part. I'm just going to come up here with my wiggle wire. I'm going to try to put this somewhere so I don't poke a hole in me or the plastic. See if you guys can see that. This is my logo. And my logo goes straight down for the most part. So as long as I get this plastic halfway straight, we're going to take this one wiggle wire here, and we are just going to put about 6 inches into this plastic where I want the center at. So that way that's like a third hand to help hold this plastic up so I can pull it on the sides. So I'm just going to roughly get it to where I want it to be. Just like this. That logo for the most part in the center. Give it a little bit of slack there. And I am just going to put a good stick in here. Just like that. There we go. So see, now that's going to hold the plastic for me so I can go ahead and start stretching this out. This is where it gets crazy because it looks way worse before it looks any better. All I did was cut off about 1 foot, and you will not throw this away. You will use this, trust me. It may look like it's that's not usable, but it is usable for all kinds of things, shade cloth especially. So we're going to cut this about 1 foot, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to grab this plastic, And I am just going to try to center up this logo, and then I'm just going to hook it with this. As you can see, I've got about 1.5 to 2 foot access on the top. And if you come down here to the bottom, you can see there's about 1.5 foot access down here also. So that gives us our 3 to 4 feet. It's more than enough plastic. So all I'm going to try to do is I'm just going to try to get this right dead center if I can. Now, it may or may not be dead center, so just do the best you can. And it doesn't necessarily have to be super tight. There you go. That's all I want to do. Because see, now that gives me another hand to pull this plastic tight. So I'm going to grab another ladder, and then we are going to get to pulling. So with a little bit of pulling and just a couple different spots, you can see how we got this plastic pushed up here. And for the most part, it looks like I may have to pull this just a little bit to this side here, just a little bit, not much. And the only reason why is because that logo's not exactly centered in this doorway. Like I said, it's kind of up to you. That's pretty good right there. So, yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So all we want to do now is we want to start at the top, and we are going to start to pull that plastic. The important thing about doing plastic and stuff like that is you want to make sure you have a ladder that will easily reach the top of your hoop or a little bit over. This is a 10-foot ladder, so as you can see, I'm probably about 11 foot up here. So that ladder is more than sufficient enough for me to use in this situation. So all I'm doing is what you would think you're doing. I'm just grabbing this plastic. Now remember, you're not pulling straight because this is an arc, so you want to pull away and down to get that arc tight. You can see there, if you don't, you can see this end wall is going to get all sloppy. You want to pull, and you don't have to rip it, you just want to pull with a little bit of force. And I got this ladder on some shaky ground, so it's a little, I probably need to, there you go, just like that. See how it's nice and taut. Come down, grab this plastic, just give it a good yank. There you go, take your side cutters. Remember, you've got to put at least 2, maybe 3 pieces in this one tracking. This tracking will hold 3 pieces or 3 wiggle wires in it. So what I always like to do is I like to come down and go ahead and do that, because the next step is putting the roof on, and you're going to put another thing of wiggle wire in here. So I like side because we can pull tight on the other side as well. I'm just trying to get some of these wrinkles out, and then whatever is left in here, we will pull tight at the bottom. So just this tight here, this is not getting the slack. You want to remember, this is an arc right here, so we need to pull this and we need to pull it down at the same time we're pulling it straight across to get this out. We'll get the majority of the stretch out of here. Like I said, the sun will do the rest. See how that little piece is like that? That's what these diagonal cutters come in handy. You can grab that little piece and just use it to help you get it inside that channel like an extra set of fingers. I'm just going to push this down the end here, and I am just going to, I think what I'm going to do to help me with this, I've got a couple pieces holding me up here, so I'm just going to take these out. That way I can get a good side pull. Just like that. And like I said, you may have to go back and adjust this. It may look a little loosey-goosey here. We haven't got the sides of the bottom yet, but we also have 4 posts as the back wall, and we have wiggle wire and tracking on it. And so as we put in wiggle wire, that's going to suck everything close together. It's going to tighten it up. So don't worry, don't fret. We are getting it. And like I said, you may have to go back and like this piece here, I don't like that. So what we'll do is we'll reposition that and we're back in business. So we're going to cut this one. And for the most part, that is in there just like that. And then we're going to come back and we're going to repull some of that. So now we have all this extra here that we could reuse for other items. Adjusted tight, just like that. So it's just like the insect netting. You want to put a little bit of pressure on the fore and the aft. And like I said, we don't have to get super perfectly tight here because you just want to get it loosely drum tight, because we do have these 4 posts that we're going to actually go through and tighten. And that's, if you guys have ever built fence before and you put a little crook into your wire, that actually tightens everything up. So this will get tight. As the sun comes out also today and heats this up, this is going to get tight and stretch, and then it will be like a drum. So you just want to kind of come through, pull everything just snug. We don't want to go super tight. We want to just be snug here. I know you think you want to just crank this down, but believe me, you don't. You're going to rip the plastic if you do. You just want to be snug. See, just like that, snug. The sun is your friend here. It's going to heat this plastic up, and it's going to help you get this. It's going to help you manipulate this into place. You guys can see this plastic's a little tight. I need to come through here and take a little bit off and just fix some of these little imperfections here. But what we are going to do is we are going to work on these end walls. Remember what I was saying? We do have these 4 posts. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. So we have 4 pieces of spring wire here. So all what we're going to do is we are going to come right here and we're going to just put that spring wire in. I always like to start at the bottom first. The reason why is because there's already a piece of spring wire at the bottom and it has a little bit of a taut gap in it. If you start at the top and work your way down, you'll poke a hole in that plastic because it gets tighter as you add more wire, if that makes any sense. So I always want to start at just like when we laid this project out at the beginning, you always want to start at the hardest corner first and work your way to the easiest. The hardest part of this end wall is going to be the bottom where 2 pieces actually intersect. We've got a piece of wiggle wire tracking right here, and you've got your end wall coming up. If you start at the top and work your way down, this plastic gets tight, 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 tight. And when you get down to here, this stuff is almost, see how hard it is to push in? It's almost impossible, and you'll poke that, will go through that plastic. To keep that from happening, just like down there, if you start at the bottom and work your way up, it gets tight and snug as it goes up, so you will not poke a hole right there. Because once again, like I said, it gets tight as you work your way out. I want this to be tight, and I want to be able to pull any slack. If I have to pull anything, I want to have to pull it there. I don't want to start there, get it tight, and then find out I'm loose in the middle and then have to take it all apart. Start in the middle, work your way out. That way the out part is where you're actually pulling all the slack to, so it'll make it easier on you if you have to take any in or out. But this is the enjoyment part now. Just think, you only have one more in wall and the roof to do, and you're done. Yeah. As long as the wind holds off, I may get this done today. Yeah. You want to make sure you pull this plastic away from you. By all means, you can leave this on the ground if you wanted to. Aesthetically reason you want to clean it up. Grab this plastic in one hand. Don't pull super tight. Just pull it away like you would be if you were using painter's tape on a wall. And you want to give yourself at least, I would say no more or no, I would say no less than at least 2 or 3 inches of excess at the bottom. In wall up. Now all we've got to do now is we've got to go up to where the vent is up there, and we've got to put the wiggle wire there to open up that vent. But yeah, I'm going to get back with you when we get the roof on. So a couple hours later, the wind is non-existent now. It's after dinner time, so this is a perfect time to get this top layer of plastic done. As you can see, we got the front end wall done, everything around the door, and then you saw we finished the back one. It's vice versa. Same thing. What we did on the back one is exactly what I did on the front one. The only difference is we had a door to work with. So I just literally cut around the door and put that plastic into the door. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started. I've got all my my spring wire laid out on the ground all the way around the outside of the far side and this side here. What I like to do is I buy this in 50-foot lengths and I cut it. I just come in about 10 or 15 feet on both sides of the tunnel. I just grab it, and for the most part, I just want to make sure I throw it over the center purlin there, and then I'll just loosely, just like that, tie it off of that. And I'm going to do the next one. We can do that. Just like that. So now what we are going to do is we're going to go inside the tunnel here, and we are going to grab the rope. Okay, so now let's go in here. We'll open up the door here, and we will grab the first set of ropes. You can see how they are just thrown over the center purlin there. And you do want to make sure that when you do this, we just want this on the outside. You want to make sure that you go through and you check everything to make sure all your screws, your nuts, and your bolts and everything are turned to the inside here. So that way you are not going to rip this plastic. Just grab this. You can see we still have the plastic laying from earlier today. It's still laying out here. So we do have a piece of plastic pipe laying here that's 10 foot long. So if I do have to push it to get it over the top of some stuff, it's not going to be that much trouble. Okay, so we're going to grab this piece of plastic, and we are just going to loosely shake it a little bit, just to kind of get that separated a little bit. We're going to grab our rope. I know this is going to be hard to see. We are going to take our toy ball, and we are just going to put it inside of this piece of plastic, just like this. And we are just going to make like a little ghost, what I call a little ghost, and then we're just going to tie the string with a rope to your little ghost. And now that's going to be your buddy that you pull up against to do that. Since I only have one little ball, we're just going to have to go without on this one. Since we do not have any wind right now, I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem. So we're just going to shake this loose. Just to make this a little bit easier on me. I like I said, it is factory folded, and they do a very good job of folding that. Now, it's not going to hurt anything crimping up this plastic. You could use about anything you wanted to. I just don't have anything round. We don't have any more children at home, so balls and stuff like that do not exist anymore. Like I said, that ball that I just used is probably 20 years old. Probably more like 15 years old. So, in all realm of things. So, we just don't have a lot of kid stuff anymore. We have a grandson, but... Okay. Now, let's just start pulling this. I'm going to pull this piece up. Just like this. Piece of plastic up and over. Okay, so let me do this. What we got to do is we have to get all this plastic on this side. Is what the problem is. All right, so just like we did on the walls here, if you remember, we do have the same writing that's reversed on one side and not on the other. So that is going to be the center. So what I like to do is I like to go ahead and mount that, and you can see it clearly right here. You can see that right here, and I'm looking at it reversed. If I was to look at it from the inside, I could read inside. So that tells me we've got this plastic on the correct way with the UV protecting on the top and the condensation control on the bottom. So what I want to do is I want to just go ahead and give myself about a 6-inch piece here. And all I'm doing is this is just going to hold. Thank God the wind is not existent today. So all this is going to do is now this is my third hand. As you can see, we are on the back now. I'll grab another piece of wire here. And we are just going to pull this center. And I am going to find it. It's right. It's like right here. So which tells me this plastic is completely not where it needs to be. All right, so we are on top of here now. The sun's getting ready to set, so we are way slow to the game now. See how that writing's in the center purlin? It was way over here. All I did was grab this plastic, and you can see how when I pull, you can see how it's getting taut now. So now I'm looking at all of that all the way down the line there, and I can see all the way down that is all the writing is on the center purlin. Can you guys see that? So we're going to go from there. All right, we are to the final step here. As you can see, we went ahead and got the plastic put on this last night, and I do want to apologize. We started putting that plastic on when it was starting to get dark. I thought we had a little more time. Apparently Mother Nature questioned me on that time, So a lot of that was done in the dark, but we did get the gist of it. What you guys do understand is just like the sidewall, it's the exact same thing on this. The only difference is you've got to make sure you pull tight and down. And what that does is you have to remember this is your flat plane here. This is a curved arc. So as you pull this plastic, it's automatically going to want to twist and kink on you because you're trying to pull something flat onto a, let's just say, a semi-curve or circle. So you've got to figure out, most of the time you can pull away and down and you can re-stretch that. But I do have a roll-up crank system there, and what that does is you can roll that up, and then when you let go of the roller, it locks in place. So it holds this, excuse me, at any different depth. If you only want this open about a foot, it will keep it open about a foot. And you may want to do that when it gets hotter or when it starts to get colder, when you don't want to release all the heat, but you want some of it to come out or some airflow to come in. So you may want to keep that at separate stages. But for the most part, you're either going to have it 100% completely closed because you've got a storm coming or cold weather coming into the night or anything like that, or you want to keep it 100% open like that to let all the air flow in and out of this tunnel, especially in the summertime. Walk around this corner here, you can see once again we are blessed with no wind today, so this is going to be in our favor. But once you get this side put on, you can see tight as a drum. The best thing to do about this is the next day kind of go back and you can pull some of this wiggle wire out of here and you can re-stretch certain positions that are slack. Now what's going to happen is as the sun shines down on this, this plastic's going to want to expand out and stretch, and so then you really will get to see what needs to be repulled and what doesn't need to be repulled. For the most part, this looks really, really good. You can see there's a couple little stretches right here. I'm not worried about that because the sun will actually heat that up and expand that out. Especially like this, if you look, you can see some of the little creases right here. You can see that one right there. That is in the plastic. That will work its way out of there. But what we have is, this is a 20-foot wide by 52-foot tunnel. So what we've got is we've got 40-foot wide plastic. And you might ask, well, why is that plastic 40 foot? Well, you've got to remember, you've got a 20-foot wide piece of plastic here, but you've also got the hoop to account for, and you've also got sidewalls. So they give you 40 foot to make sure you have plenty to go over your tunnel in case you made your tunnel a little wider than 20 foot. It's pretty easy to make that like 2 or 3 inches wider, 2 or inches shorter. It's all in your calculations and how you bend that pipe. Plus they give you plenty on the ground here to work as a roll-up side. You're not going to use all this. So you're going to want to cut that probably about 4 to 6 inches proud of that pipe right there, and you're not going to want all that as a roll-up side, because if you do, your roll-up side is going to be huge and it's going to be awful heavy, and you do not need to use that plastic. So what we use on roll-up sides is very simple. It's 3/4 inch EMT pipe. As you can see, it is jointed together with couplers that you can buy from any hardware store, any big box store, pretty much anywhere. You can get 10-foot sticks of EMT and couplers. You can use 1/2 inch, you could use 3/4. I like to use 3/4 on any of these 20-foot tunnels because it is a little thicker, a little more diameter, and it gives a little more meat on the bones there. You could buy I'm sure use 1/2 inch, but the only difference is you may have a little droop in it because that pipe is not as thick a diameter or as big as diameter as 3/4. You could use 1-inch pipe if you want to, but I think 1-inch pipe is going to be overkill for this. I don't know if they make EMT any bigger than 1 inch, but I use 3/4. That's what the Bootstrap Farmer DIY kit calls for, and that's what I use, and I have not had any trouble. I'm a little bit short here, and the piece that I did have left over would by far get me to the end of the tunnel. But you also got to think we have a crank we have to put here, and aesthetic-wise, so I did want to move that crank out to here. So what I did was I added another piece of landscaping fabric on the front here to kind of give me a landing for that to keep the weeds away from the base. And so what I initially went ahead and did was bought a 10-foot stick, and then we will cut this down because you have to remember this stick here is going to hold your crank. And so when you do that, you want to make sure you drive this down at least a foot and a half in the ground, so it's got a steady base to hold this thing straight up and down. So as you crank this, it rides up on that piece of conduit. So it's always extra, or it's always good to have an extra piece laying around. I try to keep, like this was an extra piece on another tunnel that I used. Instead of just scrapping this or throwing this away, I actually kept this because I knew I would use this. So it's probably a good idea if you know you're going to build extra tunnels, or just in general, save this little pieces like this. It doesn't take up a lot of space in the garage or your basement, and this will come in handy because this will save you from spending another 10 bucks on a stick just to cut it in half for a smaller piece. So let's go ahead and get started on this, and I'll show you how we connect this. Okay, for the most part, what I do is I get my drill driver out here, and I just use these. This is your standard 3/4 inch set screw couplings is what they call that. It's already got the screws in it, but I will tell you from experience, you need to 100% take the screws out of this and throw them in the trash. They are going to be worthless. You think, well, that's what they're for, Trace. They're for connecting EMTs together in electrical situations. Yes, they are. But you also have to think this is connecting EMTs together, and then there's going to be clamps to the wall connecting the EMT to the clamps. There's no clamps connecting the EMT to the ground or the sidewall here, so you're going to have plenty of flex. These screws will not have enough meat to hold that conduit. The conduit will fall off. Trust me, it will fall off. You can try to cheat it if you want, but I'm telling you, you're going to end up taking these all out and redoing this. So what I have done, or what I like to do, is I like to go ahead and grab the same 3/4 by 10 sheet metal screws that I'm already currently using for all my stuff, and then I just run the sheet metal screw through that into the conduit, and that holds that conduit together. The first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and get that coupling over there. We want to kind of just get it close, not that big of a deal. We're going to look out here. We're going to see where we put the other one, and by using this landscaping fabric, you can see I use dandy marker, and I am just going to roughly look at this and say, okay, well, it's about there. You can measure it if you want. I just kind of butt this piece together here. Make sure you go to the end and make sure it looks good where you want it to be. I want it to be right here. So I'm just going to mark this, and I'm going to cut this piece off. I'm going to grab your 2 pieces of conduit here. We are just going to take your EMT clamp, and you can see it's kind of like a piece of PVC. It's got a little ridge in there, so both pieces will butt together. So go ahead and just put this on here. For the most part, you can twist it on there really good. You can look inside and say, oh, okay, that's got a lot of meat to it there. So we'll put this one in here, but you can take a hammer and butt that in. All right, after you butt those in, grab your 2 sheet metal screws. The ones that I use have that little washer on it. I just took the washer off of this. It's not that big of a deal. Just grab it on there, set it in your hole, use that as your guide. Don't crank it down too tight because you will snap the head off of that, and then you will be stuck like Chuck. So that's all you're looking for, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and grab this plastic. I'm just going to, the wind kind of blew this out yesterday. I'm just going to work my way down the line here. I'm going to have this pushed, for the most part, pushed up against it like you see it all the way down here, and I am going to come out probably about 3 or 4 inches, and I'm just going to trim this all the way down the line here because we're not going to need that excess plastic. We're just going to come out here like that. But when you do this, you want to make sure this is pretty much for the most part up against there, because see, you're going to have that slack to tuck in there. That's why we're trimming this off. You can try to leave it, but I'm telling you from experience, it's not going to be your best choice there. Your best choice is to go ahead and get it where you need it to be. Cut the slack off. That we've got this where we want it to be. There's a couple different ways you can connect this. As I said, I use Bootstrap Farmer for a lot of things because they have a lot of this stuff in stock. You don't have to chase it around or try to figure out how to do this. It's fairly cheap. These are just 25 millimeter or 3/4 band clamps. That's what they call them. They're just clamps. What they are, they've got a little spring piece in the top here that comes out, and it just spreads. And what they use this for is they use it to hold shade cloth, plastic on 4-foot hoops when you build outdoor hoops, but they work perfect because on the outdoor hoops you use 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch conduit. They have these in 3/4 inch, which is this, and they also have them in 1/2 inch also. When you make those hoops that you push in the ground to build outside beds and cover them with frost blankets or stuff, this works perfect for this. So what you do is you just, when you cut your plastic, you grab your EMT. I like to keep it about 1 inch off the baseboard there. Just give me about 1 inch slack off the baseboard there, because I'll show you why here in a minute. So see how that plastic, we give that 3 or 4 inches. See how you got that 3 or 4 inches slack right there? Just want to grab it, tuck that plastic all the way under like that. Take your clamp, snaps down, and it holds it just like that. So now, see, you've got that weight. So when you pull that up, that gives you about 1 inch off the ground there. So all we're going to do is we're going to work our way down the line here. We're just going to grab it. We're going to tuck this in just like this. I like to do one every 3 or 4 feet here, because that gives you good, I guess, tuckage. When these are brand new, they're tight. These spring clips, you can reuse them over and over, but they are like super tight. And they snap pretty hard. See how that holds that now? So all we got to do now is work our way all the way down there, and then, yeah. So to make this easy so I don't have to drag a bucket, I'm just going to walk down this. And about every hoop or so, I'm going to put one here. This one. And you can come back in here and make these as close as you want. I've made them as close as this, which is 4 foot, because each one of these posts, I put it right on the post for the most part. Each post is 4 foot across, you can see that. I've put them as far apart as 10 foot. I will tell you, the further you go, the more sloppy plastic you're gonna get. And it's going to hold a lot of water. It's going to hold a lot of water, or the wind's going to get underneath of it. So I like to do 4 foot. You can see we've got, for the most part, it keeps this plastic nice and tight also. Let's open the box here. All this is a side ventilation unit. They come, I bought these on Amazon. I will tell you this, they are cheaper than on Amazon than they are anywhere else. So I will tell you this right now. So I chose to buy these on Amazon. What it comes with your crank here, as you can see. It comes with a handle and a couple bolts with some lock nuts on the backside. So what we've got now is we've got our handle here. We've got to connect this somehow. You can see this is, now remember, if you do 1/2 inch conduit, this is 3/4 inch outside diameter here. So what that means is this has to mate to this. So on a 3/4 inch conduit, this is just shy of 3/4. You can see how that slides right in there nice and pretty. You drill a hole through there, run a bolt through it, now you've got it all set up. If you were to use 1/2 inch, you would have to find a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch coupler to fit this work, or try to find this with a 1/2 inch crank, which I don't know if they make it or not. Everything that I've seen standard. You notice here you can run your drill bit through there like that, and notice what size it fits. Mine's just a hair bigger than that. That's fine, because the bolt is going to take up the slack. So we do know you can measure this out. It's probably about, I would say, probably 1/2 inch off the edge here. What I like to do is I'll just hold this, come in where I think it's going to be, probably about 1/2 inch. If I had to guess. Drill a hole, drill a hole all the way through. I would recommend, if you're not very good at drilling, to put a board underneath here so you don't poke a hole right through your plastic. So we're going to position it on the inside. So as you do that, when you stand on the inside, and you can hold this while you're cranking with your other hand, you're going to use the long bolt. For your bar here, and it really doesn't matter if you go up or down with the nut or bolt. I haven't seen any difference in it. It's got the lock on this side over here, and for the sake of it, all I've got is some slip joint pliers and a crescent wrench. We're not tightening this to the moon. All we're doing is tighten this to the conduit, so this will work in this situation here. I know it's not the ideal socket and wrench, but this is what I've got in my toolbox right now out here away from the shop. And for one, I don't feel like walking all the way to the garage to grab a socket and a wrench. This works just fine. Like I said, we're not using it for holding up the moon here. We're just tightening this nut to this conduit. So, as you can see, it works fine. So we're not going to crank down on this. We're just going to get it snug, and the lock washer, the lock nut's going to do its job. So you see there. So we're right there on the end. Go ahead and put this in here. Same thing. Run the nut through here. Got a lock nut on this side also. This conduit has to slide inside of this, okay? The last thing you want to do, you may think, oh, I'll just put the conduit in the ground and then we'll just slide this over the top. Now, remember, to get this conduit in the ground, you're going to have to beat the edge of this with a hammer to drive this a foot, 1.5 feet in the ground, right? You're going to mushroom the top. Once you mushroom the top, you're not going to get this to slide over the top of it. Hence, this is not going to come out. The only way this is going to come off this conduit now is to pull the conduit out of the ground first, then pull this off. So just think about what you're doing before you do it, because trust me, I've done it the other way and had to take everything back apart. So I go ahead and just mount the conduit. You can see it's loosely. It's made that way. So don't think it has to be super tight. There's something wrong. It's not. You're supposed to have slack in this. So we want to put this in. I'm just going through this landscaping fabric, and all I'm going to do is take a hammer, and I'm just going to hammer this home. This in, you want to make sure this conduit is lined up perfectly with the end wall and the wall going all the way down. If you have this all the way out, this thing's going to bow out. If you have this tucked all the way in, it's going to want to bow in. If you have this coming this direction, it's going to want to get caught up. You want this straight up and down, and you want it as perpendicular to the wall as possible. Put in, you can see how it mushrooms the top because it is just thin wall conduit. So you can see how everything works all the way down the line there. So now what we're going to do is we are going to roll this up. The first couple times you roll this up, it's going to look all janky because you've got to get everything playing nice together. So I like to roll it up one time, unloosen it, and then roll it up 2 or 3 times. You may have to go back and pull one of these clamps off and pull this plastic a little loose or a little tighter depending on how it lays on. You got to remember, this is 52, 54 feet long. You're going to have gravity fighting against you. So you want to try to make this as straight as possible. So it may take 2 or 3 times going back and tweaking this and tweaking that to make it look good. But we'll see what it looks like the first time cranking in here. Okay, you want to pick this up so you can get your hand above it. And you notice we're cranking all the way down now. And you're lightly pulling this up. See, now if I let go of this, it stays right here. That way you can keep your high tunnel open at a certain space. So we're just going to crank this up. Pretty soon, we're looking really good here. You got to watch your eyeball from hitting the top of this, though. My wife has done it a couple times. Okay, you notice how the center there is actually faster than the rest of it. You can see how you've got a little high arch in the center there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah, you can kind of see that. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen this up, and we're going to let gravity pull all this back down, and then we're going to try it again. And if it's still there, we're going to loosen it up, and we're just going to pull a little bit of slack out of that center portion. Okay, let's try this again. See, that's looking a lot better now. There you go. It's looking pretty good. That doesn't look too bad. Still looks like it's got a little bit in the center, so we'll go ahead and try to fix that if we can. Just for aesthetics wise. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to, but we're going to try to do the best we can here. So just give me a couple seconds here to kind of mess with this. What do you do when they roll the sides down and you've got like a 50-mile-an-hour wind blowing? These sides are just going to blow in and out because you've got open spots in this tunnel. Not everything's 100% sealed. You're going to have airflow coming through here. It's going to blow these sides out and just bounce all over the place. We like to put some type of batten down, and we'll crisscross this. And what this does is this gives this a pocket for this to lay into, so it keeps that from bouncing. What I do is I go back and I just use my metal roofing screws to wood screws, and then I use this little thing. I got this on Amazon. I've seen people use it's like just like a little small D-ring here that's got a free-flowing loop through it, and you can screw it to it. So what I do is I'll just come in here like this, run my screw through it, and I don't put it all the way at the end here. I want to make sure I have enough meat for this rope to ride down to push up against it. So I like to come in probably a good 6 inches here. And you don't have to snug this super tight. You just want this ring here. And so you can kind of see what we're doing right now. So, but you also think in your brain how this is going to lay. If you put the next one here, you're going to have to start at the bottom with your knot, go up and crisscross, because you can't go down. You need to go up. So you kind of have to think this through first on what you're doing. Like I said, there's nothing against starting at the bottom first. It's just going to be harder to pull your slack and actually tie your knot when you're trying to kneel over on the ground and you've only got inches to work with. When you're standing up here, you can put your weight into it and actually pull that up a little more. So I'm just going to work my way back down the line here. So I'm going down, and I want to hit the next one right in the middle here, just like this. Just like that. And see, that gives me plenty of meat. And these screws are 3/4 of an inch long. This board is 5/4, which is just a hair over an inch. So you're not going to have to worry about getting your hand tucked on that. You got to think about that. Just the little stuff makes the difference when you do these tunnels, because after you do a couple of these, you're going to realize, man, I wish I would have done this way. You know, I wish I wouldn't have had these screws this long, because once you catch your hand or your leg and you cut your leg open on one of these screws one time, you're going to wish that you would have done this different. It is 3/4 inch wide, 100% woven polyester pull rope. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to work my way down with this, and I'm going to tie this off, and then I'm going to work my way through the loop here, because as I do this, it's going to get tighter and harder for me to pull. So I am just going to do the best I can with what I got, and we'll just make it work. Here now that we've got enough left over, we're just going to pull this slack out just like that. We're going to give ourselves enough here. Some part of this propane torch and plastic. So, yeah. So, once again, I just come through here. I can come through here and tighten this up a little more. I'm just going to get me roughly where I want to be. I want to give myself an extra 6-8 inches here. That way, if I do need to come back after this, I can come back and adjust this. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get it on there. I'm going to check everything. You can see how much slack we had. This does work better when you have a couple people. You just get this as tight as you can, and I am not a knot person at all. I just tie a knot like you would if you were tying your shoes. I have a hard time taking knots apart, so this is the easiest thing for me. If I have to take it apart, it's easy for me to get it out. You tie 2 or 3 of these, and it actually holds really well. I'm sure there's a better knot for the job, so don't kill me in the comments. There you go. Try 2 or 3 of those. See, you've got the perfect amount of slack there. Now I'm just going to cut the tag in. The reason why you want to do that is because if this gets caught up, this will get caught up in your plastic and it could tie yourself up. So I like to cut it off there. Now, you got a torch and plastic. This plastic rope here is going to be like that yellow polyurethane or polypropylene rope is. It's just going to fray and do all kinds of weird stuff. You got to burn the end of that. You can do it with a lighter if you want. I don't have a lighter. I have a propane torch. So just hold it away from the plastic. Just give it a little tap. We're pretty much done with this. So from this point on, this tunnel will be starting to make us money or starting to give us food to feed our families. So if this is something you guys want to conquer, by all means, every single one of you guys out there could do something like this. Even if you don't have any mechanical ability, I'm sure that you know someone that has enough ability to help you put one of these kits together. I highly recommend that you check out bootstrapfarmer.com. I am an affiliate farmer, so I do have a link in the description you guys can click, and that gives us a little bit of kickback. But it's also a plethora on just reading information, vlogs and blogs about how to do this stuff. You can even download the manual and print it off so you can go step by step by step to build one of these if you think that you don't have the confidence to do this. I can 100% guarantee you every single one of you that is watching this right now could build something like this in your backyard in 5 to 7 days. No questions asked. I would love to do something like this professionally where I just market farm, but I also travel and build high tunnel kits like this for people. It would be awesome to be on the road and be able to meet different farmers and meet different people just getting started and build these high tunnels for people. But anyway, guys, hopefully you like this type of content. I'm sorry this kind of got a little long-winded. There's a lot of steps to this, and I did not want to put out like a 5-hour video of how to do this by breaking the important steps down. Like I said, if there's anything you guys want to know about, leave comments down below. I will try to answer them as best as possible. I'm sorry about the sound. Like I said, I've got a standalone microphone now because I did break my lapel mic, and I have not got a replacement for that as of yet. But anyway, guys, hopefully everything works great for you guys. I will talk to you guys next time. God bless. Be kind to each other. Oh yeah, remember, if you guys want to follow us, you can follow us here at YouTube, which you're doing right now. I would appreciate the like and the subscribe if you haven't done so already. But you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Summer Pick Farms. That's where you can see everything that we're going to be doing here and in the future. Hopefully everything works out for you guys. I will see you guys later. Bye. This one will hug it. Oh. Whew, I'm glad to be done with this.